How are you? This is Heaven Abba's Church, and we're looking today in our Bible study or devotions or whatever you want to call them. We're looking at, if my mouse would work properly instead of jumping all over the place. Okay, we're looking at Genesis chapter 40. And as we looked at last time, we saw Joseph was put into the jail and was made head of it. So we're going on from there. And it came to pass after these things that the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and the banker offered their lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth with his chamberlains and with the chief of the cupbearers and with the chief of the bakers. Now these two people that they're talking about, the cupbearers, as a king, the cupbearer used to take the first sip of whatever the king was given in case it was poison. And the chief baker was in charge of all the bakers of the kitchen. And he put them in custody into the house of the captain of the living guard, into the tower house, and into the place where Joseph was imprisoned. So now Joseph knows these two people, and the captain of the lifeguard appointed Joseph to them. And this is all God's divine intervention. Now watch what happens here. And he should attend on them, and they were several days in custody. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, one night, each his dream, each according to the interpretation of his dream. And the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were imprisoned in the tower house. And Joseph came to them in the morning and looked on them, and behold, they were sad. And he noticed this, that they were sad. So he asked them, Pharaoh's chamberlains, what were with him in custody in the Lord's house, saying, why are your faces so sad today? And they said to him, we are dreamed a dream, and there is no interpretation of it. And Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. I pray you. And they said to him, we have dreamed a dream. There is no interpretation of it. And the chief of the cups told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and the vine where the branches 3. See, significant. 3 is significant in the Bible. And there was as though abundant, it blossoms sort forth, and cultures ripped into grapes. And Joseph's cup was in my hand. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. And I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and it came up into the Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said to him, the interpretation of it is the 3 branches are 3 days. And yet in 3 days will Pharaoh lift up thy head and restore thee to thy place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner, when thou hast his cup bearer. Only bear our remembrance with thee, with me, when it goes well with thee, and deal kindly, I pray thee, with me, and make mention of me to the Pharaoh, and bring him out of this house. Bring me out of this house. For indeed, I was stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and he also I have done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. And they, the chief of the bakers, saw the interpretation was good. He said to Joseph, I also was in the dream, and behold, 3 baskets and 3 white bread were on my head. And the uttermost basket, there were a manner of virtuals from Pharaoh, and that the baker mags, and the birds ate them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said to the interpretation of it, the 3 baskets are 3 days. In yet 3 days Pharaoh will lift up thy head from off thee, and hang thee on a tree, and the birds will eat thy flesh from thee. And Joseph and said, the interpretation of it, the 3 baskets are 3 days. So again, 3, 3, and 3. 3 days, 3 baskets, and yet it came to pass the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his bondmen, and lifted up the head of his chef and the cup bearers, and the head of the chef of the bakers among his bondmen. And he restored the chief cupbearers to his office of the cupbearer again, and gave him the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And he hung the chief of the bakers, as Joseph had interpreted them. And the chief of the cupbearers did not remember Joseph, and forgot him. So we have to remember those that help us in our time of need. As we go up, we have to go past people, but we have to remember those that are below us that helped us. It's important we do that, because that's the Christian thing to do. Now we're going to Mathew chapter 14. We're going to look at the trial of our Messiah. And that time Herod, the treasurer, heard of the fame of Jesus, and said to his servants, this is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and because of this, works in the power disable their force in him. For Herod seized John and had and bound him and put him in prison on account of the Herodians and the wife of Philip his brother. For John said to him, It is not lawful for thee to have her here. And while desiring to kill him, he feared the crowd, because they held him for a prophet. And when Herod's birthday was to celebrate of Dodit, Herod's danced before them, and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised an oath to her whosoever she should ask. And she said, being set on by her mother, says, Give me here upon a dish the head of John the Baptist. And the king was grieved, but according to the oaths, and those lying at the table with him, he commanded it to be given. And he set a beheaded John in prison, and his head was brought upon a dish, and was given to the damsel, and she cried it to her mother. And his disciples came and took the body and buried it, and came and brought word to Jesus. And Jesus, having heard it, went away hence by ship to a distant place apart from the crowds, having heard of it, followed him on foot from the cities. And going out, he saw a great crowd, and was moved with compassion upon them, and he healed their infirmities. And when even as was come, his disciples came to him, saying, The place in the desert, and much of the day time already gone by, dismiss the crowds, and they may go into their villages and buy for themselves. But Jesus said to them, Have no need to go. Give me ye them to eat. But they say to him, We have not have saved 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And he said, Bring them here to me. And having commanded the crowds, recline upon the grass, having given 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and looked up to heaven, and blessed. And having broken the loaves, he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And all ate and were filled. And they took up what was left over, and above of the fragments 12 hand baskets full. So you have to do the math here. Okay, 5 loaves and 2 fishes gave a crowd of 5,000 enough to eat. But those that had eaten were about 5,000, besides men and children. So it would probably be like 10,000, because at that time, the women would have had 2 or 3 children with them. So that means that you would have 5,000 men, 5,000 women, and at least 5,000 boys and girls. So by my token, that's 15,000 with 2 loaves and with 5 loaves, and 2 fishes, he fed them. And you see what was left? And having dismissed the crowds, he went up into the mountain apart to pray. And when he was come, he was alone there. But the ship, already in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, and the wind was contrary. But the 4th watch of the night he went off to them, walking on the sea. And the disciples, seeing him walking on the sea, were troubled, saying, "It is an apprehension, or a mirage." They're actually seeing things. And they cried out with fear. Jesus spoke to them immediately, saying, "Take courage, it is I, be not afraid." And Peter, ever loving Peter, answered him and said, "Lord, if it be thou, command me to come to thee upon the waves." And he said, "Come." And Peter, having descended from the ship, walked upon the waters to go to Jesus. But seeing the wind strong, was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." You have to understand that when we're walking in the light of our Messiah, nothing can hurt us. The whole world can be bombarded as it is today. Okay? There's famine and wars and pestilence and rumors of wars and threats and racism and bigotry and idolatry and fornication and, all this foolish stuff. And immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand. Caught hold of him and says to him, "O thou of little faith, why doest thou doubt?" So he was disappointed. And when they had gone up into the ship, the wind fell. But those in the ship came and did not homage to him, saying, "Truly thou art God's Son." And having crossed over, they came to the land of Gethsemane. And when the men of the place recognized him, they sent to that whole country around, and they brought him all that were ill. And he bestowed him that they might only touch the hem of his garment. And as they touched, were made thoroughly well. When we walk in the light, all we need to do is touch the garment of his robe, and we will be restored. This is redeem. This is forgiveness. May God bless the reading of his word.